You may want to address that, but also you've said so far that the Americans do not have a coherent policy. Does Netanyahu have a coherent policy here?
On the point of Trump, it's not that I'm saying that Trump absolutely did not know.
Right.
It's that the Israelis are capable of acting outside what America allows them to do.
Right.
Israel historically has attacked even American ships. Israel has demonstrated that when it feels itself back to the wall, it's ready to burn the world, and it's ready even to go against its own ally, the Americans, and then spend money to lobby congressmen in order to try to keep the peace with the Americans and ensure there's some sort of alliance with the Israelis. It's not beyond the Israelis to do that. The second point is that Donald Trump his son is about to open numerous investment projects with the Qataris, who've just given him $1.4 trillion in investments alongside the Gulf states. Is it logical, and I don't have an answer for this, that Trump took $3.4 trillion only to tell the Israelis go and attack the Qataris? Is it plausible that the Qataris gave Trump all of this money and Trump would take that money and then say to the Israelis, go and attack Qatar? For Trump's personality, it's very unlikely that he would do so, given that he's somebody who needs that financial assistance, somebody who's celebrating those investments, and somebody who celebrates those ties with those particular Gulf states. I'm not saying that Trump cares about those Gulf states. I'm saying it is very plausible that the Israelis said, let's hit quickly and then we'll deal with the fallout later on. If we assume that Trump knew, what is the interest in Trump allowing the Hamas delegation to be hit by the Israelis when the only plausible media outcome would be that Trump is being dictated to by the Israelis and they want to ruin his ceasefire negotiations? That's not an image Trump wants to give out to the Americans or wants to give out to the Arab world or even beyond. Thirdly, American officials are aware what it means if Doha is attacked in such a way. They know that it would spark a movement in which people look for alternative security arrangements and the like. It's hard to imagine American officials gathering together with Donald Trump and saying, Mr. President, this is a very good idea. Let's let the Israelis hit Doha because we have some sort of vested interest in it. They would have calculated that it would have sweeping, possibly irreparable consequences with regards to what happens. In other words, it's not that I'm saying Trump didn't know. What I'm saying is, I don't think it's as clear cut, given that it just doesn't make any sense. Like when you look at it either way and you balance the various different interests. I think with Netanyahu and the Israelis, there is a very coherent foreign policy.
Yeah.
The Israelis believe that no matter how much mess we make, America will always clean up. No matter how much we struggle, America will rebuild our Iron Dome. No matter how much money we lose, Americans will give us billions of dollars to look after us while homes that have been ravaged by Hurricane Katrina will remain destroyed because the priority will be Israel over those American citizens in Florida. That while Americans wrestle with healthcare bills and many families going bankrupt with healthcare bills, Israel believes that the American government's priority will be to give $14 billion in October 2023 to the Israelis over dealing with those healthcare crises. Israel believes that no matter how bad the homelessness crisis gets in Chicago or in Los Angeles and the like, the government of America is Israel first before it's America first. Israel believes that the amount of lobbying power that it has deployed in America, that $300 million that it spends on AIPAC every year, that Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying should now register as a foreign agent, Israel believes we can go wild and we can count on Marco Rubio and the Americans to lobby on our behalf to clean up that mess. And that's what I mean by I think Israel has gone rabid, which is why the meeting with Trump that took place was from the Muslim leaders and the Arab leaders was rein in the Israelis. It's not that they're against the Israelis, it's rein them in. They've gone wild, they've gone rabid, and they've gone rabid because you keep letting them go rabid. And that's why I think for the Israelis, it's until America tells us to stop. Let's keep bombing 7 different countries in the region. Let's keep trying to plunge the country into war. There's a sense that we can keep doing it because we have that license to do so. Yeah. But I think, having said that, I think in that consistent foreign policy, there are questions being asked by the Israelis themselves. How long can we expect the Americans to keep backing us when we can visibly see that in the polls now Israel is unprecedentedly unpopular in America itself, and on both sides, on the Democrats and on the Republicans? And it remains to be seen. I think the conclusion of the Israelis is we can win back the polls later. Let's just keep going the way we are. The question is how long until America loses its patience with that?
Is Netanyahu's plan Greater Israel? The idea that Israel needs to stretch across the Muslim world and take large swathes of land from Syria, from even from Saudi Arabia, from countries in the region. Is that ultimately Israel's plan?
I think that's the dream of every Israeli. I mean, the very definition of an Israeli citizen is somebody who lives on stolen land. That's the very definition of an Israeli citizen.
Yeah.
An Israeli citizen is somebody who went to Palestine, found a Palestinian family living there, kicked out that Palestinian family, built a house or bought a house that was built on stolen land, and then were protected by the US, UK once upon a time, and then by the US. And then they established a citizenship and they called it the Israeli citizen. The Israel, by its very nature, as Tom Barak put it, Israel doesn't recognize the Sykes-Picot. It's not bound by the Sykes-Picot Agreement. Because Israel, as it's dreamed about by the Israelis, is not within its current borders. It's supposed to expand until the chosen people take back what God promised them, according to how the Israelis perceive it. Even though when you look more deeply, because the Quran also has a version of the story, as does the Torah, as does the New Testament and the Old Testament, God promised them land provided they fulfill a number of conditions, and they failed to fulfill those conditions, so God did not give them that land. The point that I'm saying is that I think that Israel's aim has always been Greater Israel. I don't think that has ever not been the aim. I think when you look at this new consortium that's buying TikTok, in which the White House spokesman said, we're going to force the sale of TikTok, but we need to retrain the algorithm first, implying we need to make sure that when this TikTok launches, it's no longer showing people the reality of Palestine. That's making Americans change their opinion. It's no longer showing them the death and killing that's happening in Palestine. It's showing them that sanitized Israeli propaganda and the like. There was an interview with one of the members of the consortium in which he says, what does Israel mean to you? And he says, Israel is the establishment of a state for a stateless people that we should have and we're entitled to and the like. In other words, every Israeli, by definition, dreams of a greater Israel. I think Netanyahu believes that October 7th provided a golden opportunity to provide some cover for establishing that greater Israel. But he came across two problems. The first problem is, despite the military superiority, it's been 2 years and he hasn't been able to take Gaza. That's a military failure. He's militarily incapable of taking Gaza. The second failure is he underestimated the impact of what the carnage in Gaza would cause on public opinion in America. Because Israel can't survive without a colonial power. Israel was established with the help of the British Empire. When the British Empire collapsed, they substituted the British Empire for the US. And it's the US that provides the weapon and the finances for Israel to be able to launch its wars. The Israelis underestimated the impact of that carnage and the visual display of that carnage on social media on American public opinion to such an extent that now you have Axios reporting that Congress, in an unprecedented manner, is now wavering in its support for the Israelis. You now have Marjorie Taylor Greene pulling bills from Congress that are supposed to be in support of Israel. You have, for the first time ever, the Progressive Caucus and the Democrats in Congress now voting to stop the sale of weapons to the Israelis. You now have Donald Trump coming in and publicly saying, we reject the annexation of the West Bank. These are all things I think that the Israelis underestimated.
Yeah.